Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So, welcome to today's session on Azure Data Factory. So, today we are going to focus on data flows. Yeah. So, before actually going onto the portal and create our new data flow, so I would like to discuss what is Azure Data Factory. Yeah. So, in today's world of very high volumes of data, where which is stored in very raw format and unorganized data, either stored in relational or non-relational data storage systems, yeah, sometimes this data doesn't have a proper context or a meaning to provide a meaningful insight to data analysts and data scientists, right? At this point of time, so what we need is a service which can actually orchestrate and operationalize processes to define the enormous stores of raw data into actionable business insights. So Azure Data Factory is a managed cloud service that builds for this complex hybrid extraction, transformations, and loading scenarios. For example, if you have an e-commerce company which has got so many transactions per day, which collects the transactions in gigabytes or in terabytes on a daily basis, yeah, and the company wants to analyze what kind of transactions so that they can what kinds of transactions are being done on a daily basis to gain some insights on the customer, on the vendor, or the marketing campaign which has been taken up, right? In those kind of scenarios, and uh, it is depends on the different types of data what you're going to analyze, right? Like the customer information or the vendor information, and suppose if it is stored on an on-premise system and your transactional database is on a cloud system, right? How are you going to integrate these two things? So to analyze such kind of logs, yeah, the company needs to reference different types of data. So one of your customer repository, it is on an on-premise CRM system, right? And you conduct so many marketing campaigns which are also reposited on your on-premise system, and your transactional database or your transactional system or the e-commerce website is present on your cloud service. So if you want to integrate these two parts, right, definitely you need some service which can actually orchestrate these two things and produce some meaningful data, right? To extract insights and to process the data and join these kind of two things, we need a service which can actually be uh, taken care by Azure Data Factory for this example. Yeah. So Azure Data Factory is a platform that solves such data scenarios, right? It is a cloud-based ETL which can integrate the data between your cloud and on-premise uh, data storage system. Yeah. So let's go. In this example, today's example, we are going to discuss about, or we are going to demonstrate how we are going to connect our transactional data, which has got a company code, and we are going to connect it with the master data, where the company code has got different informations like what is the full name of the company code, what is the country where it is present. Yeah, so that we are going to do. So once you reached your portal.azure.com, right? I guess you already have your Azure subscription. Go to your Azure subscriptions, and I go to this place over here. Okay, home. So I already spun up some resources which are required for today's practicals, right? What we are going to do is we are going to create a data flow on transactional data and going to map it with the company code. So I created a resource group for this purpose already, and I have few resources which are already spun up over here. I have created two data factories. I have an SQL database. I also have a storage account which has actually stored the transactional data for now. Yes. So let's go on. Let's go on to this data factory. Yeah. So here we have author and monitor. I go in over there and I see over here data flow. I go ahead over there and I create new data flow. So it is going to be mapping data flow. Click on mapping data flow. Say okay. So as soon as you click on create data flow, you get two things over here, which is source. you need to have a source and finally a target as well. So you can have multiple sources over here. So firstly, we are going to bring in the transactional data. So I'm going to rename this output stream name. So the source is, for me, I'll make it as a transactional data, and this is a data flow for transactional data, or source for my transactional data. Okay. And data set. So what is a data set? So you need to select what is a data set. So data set represents data structures within the data source, which simply point to or reference the data you wanted to use in your activities as input or output. Okay. So here in this case, I already have created a data set for this purpose. So we are going to focus on mainly on the data flows, because we already covered the data sets and integration runtime and the LinkedIn services already. So here I already created for this purpose the source data set. So if you want to see what it is about, so it is going to get connected to my blob storage. The link service is my blob storage. I already got my transactional data into my blob that is already present in the cloud right now. Okay, so that is my source data set, which has got the transactional data. And you've got here, if you've got some options where you're going to select which one is which. Right now I'm not going to select this. So when I say allow schema drift and inter drifted column types, right? This is something which is used for those data flows where we totally have unstructured data, and we have the chances that the schema can keep changing. So in those scenarios, we are going to use this allow schema drift and infer drifted column types as well. So these two are used. Right now I'm not going to check that. I'm going to uncheck that, and I'm going to check this validate schema just to see whether my incoming data is in a proper schema. It is going to validate the schema, and I also have this option on call of sampling. So right now I'm not going to enable this. So sampling, what it does is if your data flow is just working on a sample set of data, example only for 1,000 records, so then I'm going to use it as sampling. I'm going to enable the sampling. Right now I'm going to take the entire data set, so I've left it as disabled. And the source options, when I said I've already linked in service, I have a folder which is called in container, where the files are being stored, so which is actually my transactional data. So after completion of this process, what do you want to do? If you want to delete the source files, or if you want to keep it for future purpose. Right now I've just kept it as no action, because I'm going to use it for some other purpose, and I have another pipeline which can actually clear the data, right? So I'm not going to use that any of this. I'm going to leave it as it is, right? And when we said about the validate schema, so here if you want to if you want to click on this import schema, so you'll be able to see all the things which are going to come through our source, all the columns, different columns which are going to come through the source. That is company code, invoice, SSE error, reason for parking. These are the different ones. So our focus is on company code today. So right now we get the company code from the transactional data, and we are going to find out the country name, yeah, or the different attribute of the company code. So partitioning, we have different partitioning things over here, options. So what exactly does this is, this depends on the volume of data, how you are going to partition. This is for performance purpose perspective. So as of now I'm going to just use the current partitioning which is there. This is just going to see the number of columns which we have just added from the source. Totally, we can also see it over here. We have total 8 columns, and the same thing which is displayed over here. We have total 8 incoming columns. You want to see the data preview? Yeah, so turn on debug mode and wait until the cluster is ready to review. So you can also see the data preview over there. Yeah. So that's your source right now. And then if you see this small plus icon over here, I click on this plus icon. So here I'm going to have a different inputs and outputs, schema modifiers, surrogate key, aggregate key, derived column, lookup, union, conditional split, and join. So in today's session, we are going to check on join. So before we join, definitely we need another source as well. So I'm going to add another source, which is actually my master data. So I'm going to add the different source, the second source. Our second source is another source which is coming from an SQL database. So TD2. I'll rename this as TD2 and this is as TD1. Okay, sorry, this is TD and this is MD. Okay, MD. And my data set for this is going to be in SQL because just wanted to show different example as well. In this case, my master data is already present in SQL database, which has been transformed from example from an on-premise system to an SQL database already. So I'm going to disable allow schema script, just going to enable this validate schema. So to see what exactly link SQL is going to do, yeah, so this is my Azure SQL database, which is connected to. Yeah, so here in this for SQL, you're going to get it an option called as table or query. So right now we are going to input, our input is actually a table. So I'm selected this table. In case if you want to query a query, you can do that. You can write a select statement over here. It is doable. Yeah. So right now I'm going to stick to table option. Projection shows again 8 over here. So let me quickly go and check if I have connected to the right one. Yeah, this is the correct one. So this is the data source for my SQL MD company code. So now I go on to the projection. I see, yeah, these are the different master data attributes which are present. So now I have two sources. One is my transactional data, another source is my master data. Now I'm going for my join operation, with which what I'm going to find out is the country based on the company code. Yeah, so join. I go to this join and I'm going to rename this as company code MD company code join. Okay, and we have this left and right. So when we are going to do join, we always have these different join types. In this case, I wanted to have all the transactional data which has got a master data. So I'm going to use a left outer join, and my transaction is going data is going to be my left side stream. Right side stream is obviously going to be the master data. And what is the join condition? So here I'm going to use company code as a join condition between transactional data and master data. So now I have got my join as well. So we have some performance tuning things over here in where we can optimize. So I'm going to leave it as it is. So once we have joined, we have 8 columns from here, and here we have 23 columns. So altogether we have 31 columns over here. And are we interested in all those 31 columns? No. So what are we going to do is we are going to select only the columns which we really need. So I have this select schema. I'm going to select this. In the select, I'm going to select only the ones which are required for me. So I'm not interested in all these which I am going to delete as of now. All I need is the country. And I'm also going to remove these few from the transactional data source as well. Yeah, So these are the only columns which I'm looking forward. So I have my company code and the related, I wanted to find what is the related country. So that's my select. And finally, where am I going to store this? So I'm going to add a sink over here. That's my sink, my final place. And if you see now, we have really removed, we have selected only 6. So in our sink also, we are going to have only 6 columns. So we're going to transactional BP03 with master data with company code. And where do you want to connect this? So I'm going to connect it to my select. So let me rename the select. So select required fields. Okay. So if I come over here, I'm going to select only the required fields. Select data set. Okay. So here we have to create a table. So I already created, I already have a code present to create a table. We're going to go our resource group to our database, SQL Server. Last for credentials. Okay, we have company code, invoice. Okay, we have reason P, reason B, vendor, comment. Okay, we have country over here as well. So that's the one which we are looking for. I'm going to run this query, which will actually create a table. That is query succeeded. So let's see what do we have. DBO dot, what's our table name? BP03 rep. So query is running, succeeded, and it has got 0 rows as of now. We just created a table. In fact, I can also refresh over here on my left hand side. I'll be able to see the table which is already created now. So that's the table we have over here with all those columns. Now let's go back to our data factory, and now I'm going to point it to the new table. Incoming stream is the select statement, sync data set, link SQL. Okay, we are going to create, because just now we have just created a table, so we're going to create a new link service for SQL. And what's the table? All right, now we also have a target with this. So we have the source, transactional data, we have the master data with company code, and we also have selected the required fields, and we are also going to see the mappings right now. So I'm going to remove auto mapping over here so that I can map myself the required fields. So company code is going to come from company code, invoice number from invoice, SSC error Reason for parking. We do not have reason for parking because if you remember in select required we have removed it. So reason for parking, reason for blocking, we removed it. Do we have vendor? Yes, we have vendor. Do we have user? No. So let's remove user as well. And finally, the field which we are looking is country. So these are the mappings. So now I'm going to validate this data flow. It has been validated. So to execute this data flow, I need to create a pipeline. So let me go to the data flow. Let's rename the data flow as data flow for company code on BP03. BP03 is my this transaction data. So I go to my pipelines. I go create a new pipeline over here. We have copy data. Sorry, now we are going to execute a pipeline. So I'm going to remove this. Yeah, going to create a new data flow, or you're going to use an existing data flow. So I already have one. So that's this the one which we have recently created. Yeah, so now we have all we need to do is trigger this pipeline. Trigger now. Pipeline is not found. Please publish. Okay, let's publish this first. That's done. Okay, it's going to take some time now. I've just triggered it. So the pipeline is running. So meanwhile, we'll take up some questions. Let me see. Okay, there is a question which says, why is this in black color? So yeah, so I just like the dark mode. So all you can do is you can go to your portal, go to settings over here, and you have different options. So this is white, this is light theme, and this is the dark theme. So right now I'm on my dark theme. Yeah, however, this is present on portal but not on Azure Data Factory. So I think Microsoft is going to upgrade that too as well in some time. What is a linked service? Okay, link service are much like your connection strings. Yeah, once suppose you have some file in a blob storage, so you're going to tell your cloud or your Azure Data Factory what is the path of that. So that's your link service. So in this scenario, we have actually used two link services. One is for the Azure blob, the other one is for Azure SQL. So we have two link services created. Another question. Difference between a pipeline and data flow. Okay, so to me, Azure Data Factory has got two things. One is a pipeline as well as a data flow. These are the two objects which can actually do almost the same thing, but if you tell me, both are actually ETL. Both can be used as ETL, but data flow has got is much more powerful than pipelines and pipelines. That's because you can do many transformations, or you can add a column, you can have some calculation in data flow. Yeah, difference between Azure SQL and Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Okay, This one is, I'm not very sure if I say that, yeah, I think Azure SQL and Azure SQL data warehouse will have the same kind of functionality, but I see it depends on the scenario where it has been to be used. So imagine if you have got huge amounts of data, in that case, I think you should be able to use Azure SQL data warehouse where you have huge amount of data, but number of users are less. Yeah, in that case, you can use Azure SQL data warehouse. And if it is less number of, if it's more number of users and less amount of data, in that case, I think you should be able to use Azure SQL database. Yeah, but there are many things. This is only one point which I can think about right now. Maybe I can check with other experts and get back to you. Yeah. Another question: can we write an ABAP code over here? I'm not sure if I'm getting the question correct. So definitely this is Microsoft product. We definitely do not have ABAP over here. But if your question is something, if you can do coding over here, yes, we can definitely do a coding over here. So let me show you here. So this is the code which is for, yeah, this is the code which we have just now created for the data flow with the user interface. So Microsoft has actually worked a lot to make this very user friendly and, in a GUI environment where you can just drag these objects and join different things. But in background, yes, the code is being written. And to my knowledge, this code is from the language Scala. So Scala is a language which you have to learn to write this code. But however, there are two ways again how you're going to reach it. Either you're going to write the code in Scala or you're going to use this interface which is superly defined by Microsoft already. Yeah. So pipeline is still running since 5 minutes ago. Yeah. Let's take up some other questions if any. Parameters. Okay, so what are these parameters used for? Okay, so today, okay, our pipeline or our data flow is running irrespective of whatever's data which is incoming as of now. Suppose if you want, in this scenario, we have some 100 company codes in the source data, in the source transactional data. And if you want to run this pipeline or data flow only for a specific market, suppose if it is US market, you just wanted to run for US market, you can give a parameter where the company code is equal to US star. So only for US star company codes, this data flow is going to run. Oh yeah, we can yeah, the question is how do we monitor if there is an error? So yeah, hopefully we do not get any error right now, but there is a place where we can monitor over here on my left hand screen over here. So I'm going to see the runs which are running today's date. I'm going to set today's date from 2. Let's give some random date. So this is the pipeline which is running right now. So if at all, if there is any, it is right now in the progress status. So if you get some errors, you'll be able to see over here. So let's wait. Once it is get completed, we can see. So this is a place where you can monitor and the place. And if you want to filter only on specific pipelines or specific data flows, yes, you can do. You can just add a filter on the pipeline name. So I have these many pipelines as of now. So right now our pipeline 1 is running. So if I have to do, I can just click on one of this. I can see how many times it has run. So I can do that. So it does not run anything in between these two periods. So it is not showing anything. I will give it as first, from first till 31st. Yeah, there are a few failures. So if I want to see what is the failure as such, so you can see the error over here. Yeah, what the error says is company code does not allow DB null. So in this case, this was an example where the transactional data, so the master data had a blank column with company code as blank. So in SQL, we had maintained company code as key, and the source we were getting something which is blank. So we had removed that column. So this is the way how you can analyze or see the errors. I'm going to remove the filter over here so that we can see our pipeline. It is still in progress. Let's go for a few more questions. Let me take up few more questions. Activities, okay. Activities, yes. What is an activity? So activity is actually a processing step in the pipeline. We have different activities. So right now we are focusing on data flow. I do not want to. Okay, let me go. These are my different activities. Okay, what are my different activities? Yeah. So if you want to look up, if you now right now we are doing this is one of the activity where we are just executing a pipeline. But otherwise, if you have executing a data flow, so if you have some other activity like if you want to send an email once after the completion of your data flow, so you can use this web activity. And if you want to delete something, yes, you can do over here. If you want to get metadata, you want to look up on a different table. These are the different activities. Yeah. Can we use stored procedures? Yes, definitely we can use stored procedures. I have some example over here. Yep. Yep. Over here. Okay. Yeah. So what I'm doing over here, before copying data, I wanted to delete some data from the target tables. So which I've done it through over here. No, this is a different example. Anyways, yeah. Over here I have written a query. So in this place of query, you can create a stored procedure and you can execute the stored procedure over here as well. So I think this is one classic example where you can use a table or a query or a stored procedure. So it is taking for more than 5 minutes. Let's go and see what's happening over there. So this is our input. So if I click over here, this is the data flow. We can see the source data is TD, source MD, and the target is TDBP03 with company code. Yeah. So this will show the watch flow over here. Source TD has got 212 rows. Source master data has got 998 rows. And finally, what we are going to get it in MD company code in the select. These are the different places where we can see if you have to debug in future where we have lost some records or something. So these are the different stages where it will show where we have lost the data. So it also shows number of transforms. We have different transformations, which is 5 over here in this case. Now, usually shouldn't take so much time, but I think depends on various parameters, I guess. Today's internet connectivity and also this is a free subscription, so we have very limited resources. Any other questions? Pipeline is what is a pipeline? So a pipeline is one of an activity which can be it can be a copy activity or it can be execute a stored procedure. So any of these things are pipelines over here. So this is one of my pipeline. This is another pipeline. So I'm going to execute it. Yes, I can remove this. If I delete this, I can execute this pipeline. Whether it is successful or not successful, both are going to execute. So only if I going to keep this green, I'm going to add this green only on success. So once this is executed, the other process or other process is going to execute. If I want to remove it, I can remove it. Or if I want to show if only if it on error basis it has to run, yes. Or upon completion it has to run, yes, I can do that. So either it is success or if it is completed or it is a failure, you still want to run it, you can still run it. So pipeline is just a process or an activity which has to go in a sequential manner. It's definitely taking a longer time. Okay, so our pipeline which is succeeded now, it took 11 minutes. So let's see the final place where we have the data. So this is the watch list. So we have our transactional data has got 212 records. Our master data has got 212 records. Now, sorry, my source data has got 998 records. The select has brought only 212, join 212, and final. This is our sync, that is our final target, which has brought 212 records of the transaction which is present. Now we are going to see in SQL. Earlier we had 0 records. Now we are going to execute this, and we are going to see, yeah, we are going to see 212 records over here. Let me check what is that we are trying to do. So country is CN for company code CN26. So this is what we were actually trying to do. We are going to get the reference data, or we are trying to get the master data from the company code. With respect to company code, we are going to get the country code. So company code CN26. In case of HK15, what is country? It's HK. So likewise in our master data we have different other attributes of the company code. So whichever you're interested in, you can bring in that bit depending on the join condition with the company code. That's all with today's session, and thank you very much for attending the data flow the session on data flow. And if you have any questions which we were not able to cover in this session, yeah, definitely I am going to give my contact details and my LinkedIn profile as well. So in case of any questions, you can contact me over there. Thank you very much.